This hour of the Costa Report is brought to you by IBM. Big data at the speed of business.
Welcome to the Costa Report. I'm Rebecca Costa, and thank you for joining me for another 2 hours of straight talk radio. I want to welcome new listeners who are joining us coast to coast on radio affiliates in every state, and also welcome members of our armed forces who are tuning in over the internet. Thank you for making us part of your news week. In just a moment, Climatographer and founder of the Climate Web, an ambitious one-stop website which is aggregating the research and data available on climate change in one central location and transforming it into actionable knowledge. Dr. Mark Trexler will be joining us. With so much controversy surrounding the issue of climate change and so much at stake, such as the destruction caused by superstorms Harvey and Irma, can an unbiased, independent location where all known data is deposited be the answer? We'll find out this hour when we take on the charged subject of climate change. But before Dr. Trexler joins us, as is my custom each week, let me tell you a little about his background. Mark Trexler earned his graduate degrees from the University of California at Berkeley. In 1988, he joined the World Resources Institute in Washington, D.C., where he worked on the first carbon offset program. 2 years later, he founded Trexler Climate Plus Energy Services, working with energy companies, government agencies, and NGO clients. Then from 2007 to 2009, Trexler directed the Eco-Securities Global Consulting Services Group. In 2009, he served as the director of climate risk for Det Norske Veritas. I'm sure I didn't pronounce that right, but it's close. And I would be remiss if I did not add that Dr. Trexler was the lead author of the Governmental Panel on Climate Change and has been widely published on the subject of climate risk assessment. Today, Dr. Trexler is working on the Climate Web, a one-stop web resource which aggregates the viable research and analysis surrounding climate change and which offers tools which make that data actionable. It's my pleasure to welcome to the Costa Report climate expert, Dr. Mark Trexler. Thank you for joining us today, Dr. Trexler.
Thank you, Rebecca. Happy to be here.
I thought maybe a good place to kick off our conversation today is to talk about just how much information about climate change is available, and with so much data and analysis from all these independent sources, why climate change has become so politically charged.
Well, part of the problem we have is that there's almost infinite information about climate change, which makes it hard to find the information that you can really use. And the real challenge here is that climate change isn't just scientific data. I mean, climate change today has to do with solutions and engineering and human behavior and public policy and everything else. So the list goes on and on. And, you know, in a very real sense, the politicization of climate change today isn't really about the science anymore. It's more about the implications of doing something about climate change. Because if you, for example, are simply opposed to government roles in problem solving, it's very hard to accept the idea of climate change because climate change requires a government role in problem solving. So we get into the whole issue of cognitive dissonance, and we get just into the idea that we can't accept certain ideas.
Mm-hmm. Now, it's really easy for people to point to the fact that in July, Death Valley recorded the hottest month ever recorded on Earth, and massive storms like Irma and record rainfalls produced by Hurricane Harvey. It's easy to point to these as indicators that climate change is underway. But what do you say to folks who agree that the climate may be changing, but they disagree that humans are the cause or even contributing to that change, and therefore we can't mitigate what's going on?
For that to be the case, you really have to come up with an alternative view as to what would be causing the climate change. You have to remember that the climate that we're in today has basically been stable for the last 10,000 years. I mean, it's been virtually stable for 10,000 years. So if it's changing today suddenly, what is it that's causing it to change? And there are various hypotheses that have been thrown out, sunspots, et cetera, but the science just doesn't support that. And generally, the scientific consensus is that it's greenhouse gases And it's the fact that humans have emitted a lot of greenhouse gas in the last 100 years.
So are you satisfied, given the fact that, you're a clearinghouse for so much of this information, are you satisfied that we've really gone down every possible cause and that the most likely cause seems to be human activity?
Well, I'm not an atmospheric scientist, and so I don't come at this as an expert in atmospheric chemistry. But the people who are experts in atmospheric chemistry are pretty much unanimous on that point. There is really no question. We know that human activities have changed the atmosphere. There's no question about that whatsoever. Nobody would disagree with that. And we have every reason to believe, based on the science, that change in the atmosphere will lead to global warming.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Now, Rex Tillerson, the former CEO of Exxon and current Secretary of State, he has said that humans have adapted to changes in the environment before and will adapt again. Mm-hmm. Does he have a point? Do we need to do anything, or do we just adapt to the change?
Well, we certainly are going to have to adapt to change, because change is already occurring. And so even if we were to act very strongly and aggressively to limit climate change, we would still have to adapt to climate change that's already in the pipe, so to speak. The problem with what Rex Tillerson is saying is that our climate has been stable for 10,000 years. Yeah, when he says adapt, he means adapt to just inconsequential blips in climate. Now we're totally leaving behind the stable climatic patterns in which our agricultural systems have evolved, in which all of our systems have evolved. So we've never had to adapt to that before, ever.
So looking at predictive models, is it possible that the climate could change so radically there is no adaptation?
Well, there's two parts to that question. One is that there are adaptation limits. For all practical purposes, sure, there will always be people in a position to adapt to anything. If necessary, you put them in a spaceship and you send them somewhere else. That's adaptation.
Right, create your own environment.
Right. But if you think of adaptation from the standpoint of societies as a whole and billions of people on the planet, we're headed within, very likely this century, for 3 to 5 degrees centigrade of climate change. And it's very hard to envision being able to adapt to anything close to that. The consequences for food production, for all sorts of things, would be just too disruptive.
So let's just cut to the quick. What's the worst case scenario when it comes to climate change?
The worst case scenario is that we trip some of the tipping points that some climate scientists are talking about. So there's a hypothesis, for example, that as the oceans warm, which they are warming, we will start to see released large quantities of methane, for example, methane hydrates, that sit on the bottom of the ocean floor around the world. And they'll start to bubble to the surface. And once they start bubbling to the surface, you get a feedback effect. The planet warms up faster. You get more permafrost releasing CO2. The planet warms up faster. And so you get into a feedback loop that is almost impossible to control. That's the worst case.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. And what's the best case scenario?
Well, the best case scenario would be that, number one, climate change, the climate ends up being less sensitive than we think to greenhouse gases, so that we have a little more time, and that we actually take serious steps to reduce our overall societal carbon footprints, and that we accelerate radically a transition to a low carbon economy. Mm-hmm. That's the best case.
But when you say we, do you mean we, the United States? Do you mean we, all industrialized nations, getting together? We can't get together on anything.
But when I say we in this case, when we talk about a low carbon transition, it's got to be everybody. It can't just be just the United States, just the industrialized countries.
Well, we're going to talk about that on the other side, because I want to know how we, all the industrialized nations, get together on anything. We have to take our first break, but stay where you are. We'll be right back with more from Dr. Mark Trexler. You're listening to the Costa Report.
Hi, I'm Joan London. If you're worried about your parent or loved one living alone, like I was, and you want reliable senior care information, then call A Place for Mom, the nation's largest senior living referral service.
Finding an apartment that was on the courtyard with the view of the trees, the view of the ducks, the stream, the creek, all of that, that was what I needed.
You'll get free information on assisted living, Alzheimer's care, nursing homes, even important financial information. Here's the number.
To speak with a local senior living advisor, call A Place for Mom at 800-451-2976. That's 800-451-2976.
A Place for Mom is a free service, and you can trust them to help you. So if you're struggling to find reliable senior living information, there's a place for answers, A Place for Mom.
To speak with a local senior living advisor, call A Place for Mom at 800-451-2976. That's 800-451-2976.
Like a lot of women I know, I am a big fan of a clean-shaven man. But not just any shave. It has to be a close, fresh shave. The kind of shave us ladies like to get near. In other words, a hairy shave. 3 million men have switched to Harry's because you can't get a better shave for the price. That's because Harry's razors are shipped from a factory that has been making precision blades for over 100 years direct to you with no middleman. But you don't have to take my word for it. Harry's is so sure you'll never use another razor again, they're offering a trial shave kit for free. The kit includes an ergonomic razor handle, 5 precision blades, shave gel, and a travel blade cover. To get your free trial shaving kit, just go to harrys.com/Costa. That's harrys.com/Costa. And find out why a Harry's razor makes all the difference.
Every day, I wake up at 5 a.m. to give Dad his medicine. Every day, I wake up at 5 a.m. to give Dad his medicine. At 6 a.m., I make his breakfast. Every day, I wake up at 5 a.m. to give Dad his medicine. At 6 a.m., I make his breakfast. At 7 a.m., I shower. Every day, I wake up at 5 a.m. to give Dad his medicine. At 6 a.m., I make his breakfast. At 7 a.m., I shower. I start laundry at 8. At 10, we go for a walk. Every day, I wake up at 5 a.m.
For those dealing with the daily struggles of caring for a loved one, we hear you. That's why AARP created a community with experts and other caregivers for advice, tips, and support. Together, let's help each other better care for ourselves and the ones we love. Visit aarp.org/caregiving. A public service announcement brought to you by AARP and the Ad Council.
I am done with my mattress. That's right. I'm not spending another night on this old bag. My new mattress comes today, and this thing is out of here. Bye-bye, mattress.
Yep. Bye-bye, mattress. So says you and about 1,000 other people every day. And that's a lot of old mattresses with no place to go. There's the landfill, of course, where they just take up space. But what a waste. Because you could send it to a mattress recycler, where old mattresses get broken down into steel, foam, wood, and fiber that become new steel, carpet padding, home insulation, garden mulch, biomass fuel, locomotive oil filters, and all kinds of other great stuff. So bye-bye mattress is right. But don't toss it. Recycle it. It's easy. And it's free. To find a mattress recycler in your area, visit buybuymattress.com.
Welcome back to the Costa Report. I'm Rebecca Costa, and my guest today is the founder of the Climate Web, an acclaimed climatographer, Dr. Mark Trexler. And when we went to break, I left you with a little bit of a cliffhanger because I was curious about how in the dickens we get all countries on the same page working together on mitigating climate change. So, Dr. Trexler?
Let me reframe the question for just a second, because we are going to do a low carbon transition. We didn't leave the Stone Age because we ran out of stones. And we are in the process of a low carbon transition, and there is really no question that we'll get there. The real problem is that we'll get there just after we've committed the planet to 4 degrees of climate change, which is very bad. So the question is, how do we get the pieces to line up to really accelerate the low carbon transition? And that, different people need different information for that. And that's what the Climate Web is about, of how do you give different audiences, different silos, different experts the information they can use to perhaps help accelerate the low carbon transition from whatever angle of leverage they have.
So your hope is that people from all countries, right, and doing all kinds of research on climate change, as well as governments and businesses, can go to a central resource and be able to see all of the data that's available, but more importantly, to do some risk assessment, look at what they can do to reduce their carbon footprint, and look at whether it's worth taking an action.
Yeah, I mean, each of us needs different actionable knowledge in terms of whatever our role is, our capabilities, our resources. We need different actionable knowledge to figure out what is it that we can most effectively do about the problem. And so, how do you get from the infinity of information out there, how do you direct people to the actionable knowledge that they might use? And without that, we say, I recycle, and so I'm doing my part. Well, it's great to recycle, but recycling doesn't do anything about climate change. And so, how do you get people to understand what they can do and why, voting, for example, is critical. We need public policy. What can we do without public policy as business leaders, as individuals, as teachers? And Woodrow Wilson had a great quote that said, "There is no idea in our heads that has not been worn shiny by someone else's brains." There is so much good thinking out there. It is remarkable. And the Climate Web tries to pull all of that good thinking together so that anybody can take advantage of the specific thinking that is most useful to them.
So give us another idea. I mean, I have never thought about voting as actually connected to climate change, right? That's kind of an interesting connect the dots. But it is connected, right? I mean, because whoever you put into office is either going to take action, not take action, right? And probably should be asked beforehand about what their positions are and what their thoughts are and what they might find actionable. But give us another example. What might be something actionable for the person on the street? I mean, I think you're right. I think we all take our big plastic trash cans out to the curb with our recycled stuff and we go, well, I'm doing my part.
Well, it really, again, it really depends on who you are and what your capabilities and resources happen to be. I mean, for one person, a small thing they might do is do a teleconference instead of attending a conference, and so you don't fly halfway around the world. But again, there's a real challenge when you try and turn this into an individual responsibility problem. Yes, we all have individual responsibility for our actions, but 10 million of us can take that action and it won't make any difference to climate change. We have to set up a situation that helps that low carbon transition, which means pricing carbon, which means emissions reduction mandates. It means public policy. Right. And so we have to be playing climate chess. We have to be moving numerous pieces around on the game board at the same time if we're going to get to the goal.
Now, Paul Hawken recently published a book, Project Drawdown, in which he attempted to offer a comprehensive look at a myriad of solutions aimed at impacting climate change. The fact is there are many scientifically proven ways which could have an impact. What did you make of his analysis? And does the information on the Climate Web support the information that Hawken's book, Project Drawdown, has in it?
Well, just to give you an example of what we're using the Climate Web for, you can go into the Climate Web and see all 80 of Paul's Project Drawdown technologies in one place. And then you can click on any of those technologies to see what have other people said about those technologies and to find resources about those technologies. And so it sort of tries to create a web that helps you find the information that you would find useful. I think that what Paul and his large team did is certainly thought-provoking. A lot of people have questioned the idea that educating girls in developing countries is sort of the number one or the number two climate change intervention.
How is that?
Well, I mean, it basically comes down to population in the sense that if you educate girls in developing countries, they tend to have less children, less population, less resource demand, less climate change. So the link is certainly there, but it's an unconventional way to think about mitigating climate change. And so it really sort of gets into the interesting question of, if everything is mitigating climate change, does that mean that nothing's mitigating climate change? Just in terms of, what really do we need to be focused on? And
now, what's going to have the biggest impact? Because
right.
You're saying that it's a timing issue, right? I mean, we're already moving toward lower carbon emissions, right? If we do nothing, technology is moving us along in that direction.
Right.
So let's just say we do nothing. The real issue is we'll have rising temperatures, and we know what happens if we do nothing. Let's say we are going to do something. What would be the most powerful thing we can do?
It is pretty well understood, and almost anybody would agree on this, that because climate change is due to the existence of an economic externality, in the sense that we are doing something, i.e. emitting greenhouse gases that are causing damage, but we're not getting charged for it, and the definition of an externality. And so the single biggest thing we could do would be to fix that externality, and that's what we generally think of as pricing carbon. If you price carbon emissions and other greenhouse gas emissions, people will adapt their behavior to that and reduce emissions.
But that's punitive.
It's not really punitive. It's simply fixing the market. And what's great about it is that people who like markets often tend to be people who have sort of problems with governmental policies on climate change. But fixing the market is an inherently conservative thing to do, because having a market that is running amok because it's not correct, that just doesn't help anybody. So it's not. I would suggest that it's not right to think of it as punitive.
Well, I think when you price carbon, it feels punitive. Let me put it that way. It feels punitive. Why not go on the other side and incentivize people to move away from carbon emissions? I mean, through tax incentives and things like that. We've done that in the past. We've had tax incentives for moving to solar, right, and moving to alternative renewable sources.
There's a real challenge there, because it's very hard to incentivize your way into a low carbon transition.
Really? You
can demonstrate individual technologies, you can help get them going, but you can't cause the mass deployment.
It won't be enough. Right. We have to take another short intermission, but stay with us. You're listening to the Costa Report. I'm here today with Scott Caraccioli of Caraccioli Cellars, whose Brut Cuvée is winning wine awards faster than we can name them. What is it about Caraccioli's Brut Cuvée that sets it apart from others?
I really think it comes down to both process and the fruit. We're in an ideal location to grow Chardonnay and Pinot Noir, and being able to harvest that at optimal pick points in Monterey County, where you have a climate and soils that produce these grapes in the best way possible. Pulling them earlier on, you still get a lot of fruit expression, but you get a lot of acidity, which gives you the opportunity to make killer sparkling wine. And our Brut, being our flagship wine, has everything that's possible when it comes to sparkling wine. You can order any of our products directly from us by visiting our website at caracciolicellars.com or calling the tasting room directly, 831-622-7722.
I'm Paul George of the Indiana Pacers. When I was 6, I had one thing on my mind. When I was 6, my days were spent playing basketball every chance I could. When I was 6, my dream was to make it to the NBA. When I was 6, my mom had a stroke. So I want you to learn the signs of a stroke fast. F-A-S-T. F, face drooping. A, arm weakness. S, speech difficulty. T, time to call 911. Because the sooner they get to the hospital, the sooner they'll get treatment. And that can make a remarkable difference in their recovery. I'm Paul George. Protect the ones you love. Spot a stroke F-A-S-T. Fast. Life is why. Visit strokeassociation.org. Brought to you by the American Stroke Association and the Ad Council.
Women now make up 37% of the workforce, changing their role forever.
Harvard Medical School has now opened its doors to new female applicants.
The first woman is now in space.
The majority of last year's doctorate degrees were earned by women.
We've come so far, but our news is changing for the worse. More women die from heart disease and stroke than men, even though it can be prevented. Make a change at GoRedForWomen.org today. Brought to you by the Ad Council and the American Heart Association's Go Red for Women.
Okay, what are you wearing right now?
Nothing.
That's right. So Mommy's going to teach you how to dress yourself. Underwear always comes first, name tag at the back, then pants, then shirt. Get the first button in the right hole or you have to start all over. Socks going first, then shoes right on right, left on left. With shoelaces, just take the ends, cross them over, switch the loops, the rabbit goes down the hole, pull tight, and you're left with bunny ears. Got it? Why are your pants on your head?
Most parenting is hard to do in just 2 minutes. But 2 minutes twice a day making sure they brush their teeth is easier, and it could help save them from a lifetime of tooth pain. Visit 2min2x.org to find out more. A message from the Partnership for Healthy Mouths, Healthy Lives, and the Ad Council.
Yeah, it's me, your heart. Listen to me. We've got to talk. High blood pressure is serious, and yours? Whoa. What happened to us? We used to be so much more active. But lately you've been ignoring me. I know you think I'm just gonna keep ticking away forever, but you're wrong. You can do so much more to control your high blood pressure. Doing the minimum isn't doing enough. I'm under a lot of pressure and can quit whenever I want. Bet you didn't know that. But I like my job. Just treat me better. Check on me. Give me something green to nibble on every once in a while. And maybe we can do some exercise on occasion. Let's get to it. After all, we're in this together.
Listen to your heart. Don't let it quit on you. High blood pressure can lead to a stroke, heart attack, or death. Get your blood pressure to a healthy range before it's too late. Find out how at heart.org/blood pressure. Check, change, control. A message from the American Heart Association, the American Stroke Association, and the Ad Council.
Welcome back to the Costa Report. I'm Rebecca Costa, and if you're just joining us, my guest today is Dr. Mark Trexler. And before the break, we were talking about really climate change. What is going on with climate change, and can we mitigate? Should we mitigate? And what do we have to do to get enough momentum going that we can actually influence climate change? Individual effort is not going to do it. And to this extent, Dr. Trexler has been working on something called the Climate Web. So tell us more about the Climate Web. Who is it for, and who's using it?
Well, the Climate Web got started as a result of a conference I attended where people were talking about how humans make decisions, and that all of us, before we make a decision, are asking ourselves exactly the same two questions. Is it worth it to me, and can I do it? It doesn't matter whether you're talking about launching nuclear weapons or stopping smoking. You're asking yourself exactly the same two questions. And as I listened to that, it occurred to me, well, what if we tried to do that for climate change decision-making? Instead of simply going in and giving the typical 10 PowerPoint slide presentation explaining what you should do or why you should believe in climate change, what if we organized large amounts of information, sort of the best thinking on anything to do with climate change, so that you could access it and sort of come to those conclusions on your own? And so that's why we started building the Climate Web with something called Brain software. Very interesting software for this kind of work. We've been at it now for about 6 years, and we've had maybe 50,000 people use it. And it's a software that makes it difficult to know exactly what they're doing with it and how they're using it. So that's still a bit of a challenge. And we're still experimenting every day on how to make it more accessible and how to make it easier for people to find the information they can use.
So who is using it? Give us an example of somebody that has used it and has, as a result, had an actionable item that they could leave with.
Not as easy to answer as you might think, but I know that a number of researchers are using it because they're finding just the way that we've organized all of this information a very useful way for them to find stuff that they hadn't otherwise thought of. One person right now, a lawyer, is setting up a new legal consulting practice around climate change. And he is basically doing that with the Climate Web in terms of using information that he can access through the Climate Web to develop his offerings and through his new legal website. And so that's sort of an interesting use of it. And that's really what we're trying to do, is to say, do with it what you will. Here we've organized the information that helps you answer the questions that you have, and listen to the people that you would tend to listen to, rather than just being dictated to by somebody that you don't want to listen to.
And how does this brain software work?
Well, the brain software is a commercial software, and it's just a fascinating way of organizing almost infinite information and being able to find it instantly. And it's generally used just on a desktop. So we're really pushing the envelope of the software in terms of something that other people access over the internet. Because one of the interesting things about designing something with the brain software is that you tend to make it look like your brain, so it makes sense to you. We're trying to have it make sense to 1,000 other people that might log on to the brain. And so a huge amount of our work has been, how do we organize it so that it's not just my brain, but it makes sense to anybody's brain that wants to come in and look at the information.
Is it artificial intelligence? What is it looking for? Is it looking for keywords? Is it what does it search?
And it's not searching. You search it and explore it. It is definitely not artificial intelligence. And I think that climate change is really too complex for artificial intelligence today. What we're simply doing is, instead of saying, if you have a question on climate change, Google it, get 52 million hits, and you look at the first two. Right.
The first two pages.
Not even the first two pages. You look at the first two hits.
Right.
And instead of that, what if we have asked that question previously, organized the top 100 hits, pulled out key information on those 100 hits, and organized it all in a way that you can benefit very quickly from those 100 hits, which are in principle available to you if you search through Google for hours and hours and hours.
Sure.
But we've spent 16,000 hours already doing that and organizing that information so that you can find it in 5 minutes.
Right. And a lot of the information is redundant as well. And you've eliminated a lot of that. You've consolidated it in what are the main pieces of these 100 hits, for example.
Right.
And so from that standpoint, a lot of the redundancy, a lot of the time and make work is just taken out of it.
It is. And the other thing that it really makes possible is, one of the things that I know that you talk about, and that is certainly true for climate change, is the siloing problem. We have 100 climate silos out there. We have people that think as economists, and we have people who think as psychologists, and we have heavy-duty scientists, physical scientists, there's just dozens of climate silos, none of whom understand the least thing about the other person's silos. Well, for climate change, that's just awful. Because climate change is a problem that requires that we have some sort of a big picture, and we need to be able to understand these linkages between different topics. And what we do is make it possible. We're not telling an expert, here's what you should think. That would be silly. But we are letting that expert explore 15 other silos that they're not expert in and come up to speed in a way that they just have never been able to do before.
Yes, absolutely. Now, we have to go to a commercial break here, but I'm wondering if you'd mind holding on and joining us in our roundtable the next hour.
I'd be happy to.
Oh, terrific. So we'll hear back from Dr. Trexler. Before we pause for our regular station break, I hope you'll let me brag a little bit about my son, Matthew. I have one son, and I'm fond of bragging about him. The other day, he stopped by on his way to work, and I noticed there was something different about him. And these are the kinds of things a mother immediately notices, no matter what age your children are. Matthew looked so refreshed and groomed and healthy. And when I asked him what he was up to, he said, "Mom, I started using the Harry's razors you ordered for me. I use them every day." Now, the reason I wanted to share this story with you is because there are some things that you can't tell a person about. I've been telling my son about Harry's razors for the past year. And I've been telling him about the Smooth Glide, the ultra close shave you get with Harry's 5-blade razor. These are the kinds of things, apparently, according to Matthew, you have to experience firsthand. But once you do, you will join my son and over 3 million people who have switched to a Harry's razor. In fact, Harry's is so confident that you'll love the feel and look of your shave, they're offering listeners of the Costa Report a free trial. Just go to harrys.com/Costa, C-O-S-T-A, to get your ergonomically designed razor handle, 5 precision blades, shaving gel, and blade cover. All you pay for is shipping. So do it right now. That's harrys.com/Costa to get your free trial razor, blades, gel, and blade cover. Remember to put in the /Costa, C-O-S-T-A, to get the complete razor kit at no cost, zero. This offer's not going to last long, so jump on your phone or your computer or your tablet, whatever your device is, and go to harrys.com/Costa to get your trial razor. And if you have a son or a husband who shaves every single day, well, you know what? Sometimes you just can't get people to do things. So do what I did. Go to harrys.com/Costa and then surprise them. And you know what? Maybe like my son, they'll start using it. And I promise you, if they do start using a harrys.com/Costa razor, you will be so shocked at the difference. I could not believe the clean shave my son had. And I thought he'd gone to a spa or, had a facial. Of course, he's not the kind to go for a facial. I should have known better, but there was just something really refreshed about him. And I felt so proud that my son Matthew used the Harry's razors that I ordered for him. So you try it out yourself. harrys.com/Costa to get your trial razor. We have to take another break, but we'll be back after these important messages from our sponsors. You're listening to the Costa Report.
Are you struggling with addiction or alcohol problems? If you're depressed, drinking, and using drugs, you may need help. And the Affordable Care Act guarantees coverage of substance abuse.
I knew I could get myself out of this. I just needed some hope and some help.
I took the first step to recovery when I made the call.
Call the Addiction, Hope, and Helpline now for a free assessment with someone who cares. Call 800-962-6969. 800-962-6969.
I feel like I'm losing control. I'm afraid I'll lose my job or even my family.
Call now for hope and help with proven, gentle recovery programs.
I never thought that I could be somebody who didn't drink and use drugs.
I'm in recovery, getting the help I need.
Call the Addiction, Hope, and Helpline now for a free assessment with someone who cares. Call 800-962-6969. 800-962-6969. 800-962-6969.
Hi, I'm Joan London. If you're worried about your parent or loved one living alone, like I was, and you want reliable senior care information, then call A Place for Mom, the nation's largest senior living referral service.
Finding an apartment that was on the courtyard with the view of the trees, the view of the ducks, the stream, the creek, all of that, that was what I needed.
You'll get free information on assisted living, Alzheimer's care, nursing homes, even important financial information. Here's the number.
To speak with a local senior living advisor, call A Place for Mom at 800-451-2976. That's 800-451-2976.
A Place for Mom is a free service, and you can trust them to help you. So if you're struggling to find reliable senior living information, there's a place for answers, A Place for Mom.
To speak with a local senior living advisor, call A Place for Mom at 800-451-2976. That's 800-451-2976.
It may be hard to believe, but people just like you are already saving money. FeedThePig.org makes it easy. Their simple savings plan teaches you how to start saving without going overboard. So you don't need to mooch off your friends.
You gonna finish that grape?
You mean the one in my mouth?
You don't need to stop buying the necessities.
What you're smelling is a natural musk.
Ew.
You don't need to be a medical test subject.
How do you feel? Mostly okay. Sometimes, though.
You don't need to get a second job as a stuntman.
We need a new stuntman. Let's break for lunch.
You just need an internet connection. Don't get left behind. Start your personal savings plan with the tips and tools on feedthepig.org. That way, you don't need to sell your soul to the devil.
$15 is the best I can do.
All right, deal.
Brought to you by the American Institute of CPAs and the Ad Council.
Hey, America. We need to have a little talk. I don't know if you've noticed, but we got a lot of food in this country. A lot of peaches, a lot of corn, a lot of apples, a lot of everything. We've got so much food that we can't even eat it all. So if we got all this extra food, how are 17 million kids in America struggling with hunger? I just don't get it. That's why the Feeding America nationwide network of food banks gathers surplus food and gets it to the hungry kids who need it. They can get you food even if you live in Idaho or Alaska or somewhere crazy like that. This isn't complicated. We got extra food and we've got hungry kids. Feeding America's done the math. Now it's your turn. Support Feeding America and your local food bank at feedingamerica.org. I know you got internet on your phone, so what are you waiting for? We can't do it without your help. Brought to you by Feeding America and the Ad Council.
Welcome back to the Costa Report. I'm Rebecca Costa, and if you're just joining us, we have been speaking to climate expert and founder of the Climate Web, Dr. Mark Trexler, who, as you heard, had growing concerns over the volume of statistics, analysis, and research and how siloed it was. And so, he felt it was so compartmentalized and spread out all over the place that the information was just not usable. And even researchers were having a hard time keeping track and up to date. So the first challenge Trexler faced was finding a way to vet the data for scientific viability and then to start aggregating the world's information so the latest and greatest information on climate change could be accessed by anyone, anywhere, just at one site. Trexler's site is impressive if you haven't been there. And it's really easy to navigate to get to the information that you want and need. He makes no attempt to censor studies with conflicting results or data. In this way, he's pretty much removed any personal bias from his site. And as you know, that is really tricky stuff. Next up, Trexler set out to use the same analytic tools financial analysts and very large corporations use to make complex data actionable. So not only is the information accessible, it can be used to make decisions about trade-offs and risks. But one thing Trexler's Climate Web cannot do is erase the stigma associated with climate change and the words global warming. Even the words global warming just triggers so much emotion. It isn't even something that the reemergence of Al Gore can dispel. The issue of climate change has become so emotionally charged and political, it now divides us the way voting for Trump or Clinton did. And immigration reform and the DACA ruling does. I mean, it seems everywhere we turn, there's more divisiveness, more intolerance, more righteousness, and less effort or attention paid to solutions to our problems. Our emotions are so inflamed, it doesn't take much to trigger an irrational response that shuts down any effort to work together to overcome. Climate change is a good example of what I mean. The fact is, it doesn't really matter if you believe the change is caused or even influenced by human behavior. To me, that entire argument is a dangerous distraction from what we really ought to be talking about. And by we, I mean businesses, governments, NGOs, and you and me. What we should be talking about is whether there is any way to reverse changes which can lead to havoc, chaos, and destruction. I don't just mean superstorms, record rains and flooding, prolonged early frosts and droughts. I mean food and water shortages, which will produce massive migrations, violence, disruption, disease, and death. What we're talking about is daunting. We are challenging humans to nudge Mother Nature in a different direction, something we have never attempted before, and which even if we do attempt, with all of our science and knowledge and deploying every one of the tactics outlined in Hawkins' seminal work, Drawdown, may have no or little impact. We have predictive models which allow us to make some very good guesses at what impact we can have if we all pulled together. But these are only models based on theoretical science. It doesn't mean we can alter nature's course one iota. Since we've never tried to modify macro weather patterns before, we don't have any empirical success. The fact is the history of the Earth that we have is rather short compared to the history of all other things. Almost everything we understand about climate change and whether we can affect it is based on history and records that are such a small sampling that they're prone to error and they're also prone to political debate. That said, sometimes you have to move forward knowing the information you have is inadequate or even flawed. We rarely have all the data we need or even airtight information when we take action. And climate change shouldn't be any different. The data isn't perfect. Some of it is or will be proven wrong. But the real question is whether that should stop us from acting. You've heard me say this before, and I'm sure that I will say it again. When it comes to climate change, we have two choices. We can take a better safe than sorry position and all get on the same page and try to influence Mother Nature with the full arsenal of science, knowledge, policy, and practice at our disposal. Or, as Rex Tillerson has said, we'll have to adapt. And we all know what happens when a radical change in the environment occurs. We know what it's done in the past. It's a painful process, one which 99.9% of all living organisms which once lived on the earth have not survived. Put in that context, it seems to me the choice is pretty clear. We have to use what we know and what we have at our disposal to try to move the needle. Now, before we take our normal break, you know how much I enjoy giving away free products and services on this program. So if you're struggling to fill a position in your company, I want you to take full advantage of this free offer, because the longer a job goes unfulfilled, the more good employees are taxed. They're the ones that have to take up the slack when a job goes unfulfilled. So you want to hire help fast, but not just any warm body. You want someone who can hit the decks running. That's where ZipRecruiter can help. With ZipRecruiter.com, you can post your job to 100-plus job sites with just one click. Then powerful technology matches the right person to your job. And you can imagine how much time you'll save by posting a job just one time and then having it appear on 100 job sites. Never mind how much you increase the odds of locating that perfect person for your opening. This is why thousands of businesses, small, medium, and large, have turned to ZipRecruiter. Unlike other job sites, ZipRecruiter doesn't depend on candidates finding you. It goes out and finds them. In fact, 80% of employers who post a job on ZipRecruiter find a qualified candidate through the site in just one day, in 24 hours. So ZipRecruiter is not only thorough, it's also very fast. No more juggling emails or calls to your office. Simply screen, rate, and manage candidates all in one place with ZipRecruiter's easy-to-use dashboard. And right now, listeners of the Costa Report can post jobs on ZipRecruiter for free. That's right. It will not cost you 1 cent. Just go to ZipRecruiter.com/Rebecca, REBECCA. That's ZipRecruiter.com/Rebecca. One more time to try it for free, go to ZipRecruiter.com/Rebecca. And, you know, if you have a boss that's having a hard time getting a job filled, or maybe dragging their feet and saying, we can't really find anyone qualified, be sure and tell them the fastest way to find the best person for that job also happens to be free. And who doesn't love free? All they have to do is go to ZipRecruiter.com/Rebecca, REBECCA. And, you know, put a little pressure on them to fill that job. Nobody likes to fill in for an empty position. And boy, do you tax everybody in the entire organization when that goes on for too long. And that is just about all the time that we have got this hour. If you have not checked out my new column on Newsmax, make sure you take a moment to go online to Newsmax. I also want to remind you that my new book, On the Verge, hit #1 on Amazon's business books the first day. Of course, it was only for a minute or so. No. Hopefully it'll stay there with a little bit of your help. Grab On the Verge. You can get it on Amazon, Barnes & Noble, all local bookstores. They're flying off the shelves thanks to your support. So be sure and get your copy before they reissue a second copy, because you want to get that first edition. You want to get that first edition hard copy. And you know what? If you email me or you send me the book, I'll even autograph it for you. So be sure to check out my new column on Newsmax. Check out my Fox Opinion piece on foxopinion.com. And be sure you pick up a first edition hard copy version of On the Verge, which is in bookstores everywhere throughout the country. And you can also go to our website at RebeccaCosta.com, and you can see videos about On the Verge. I just did an interview with RT News, and we just posted that. So take a look. Take a look. I think it'll get you motivated to get the book. If you want to know what's in store for the future and how to get ready, this is the book for you. Now stay tuned for a second hour of the Costa Report. Listen up, because I want to let you in on a little secret. You don't have to be a psychic to know which business and political experts are going to be on the Costa Report next month. All you have to do is sign up for our free monthly newsletter at RebeccaCosta.com. It takes less than a minute, and when you do, you'll receive our guest schedule along with special announcements and free offers the first of every month. So go to RebeccaCosta.com and sign up today.
Yesterday, I got a call from the IRS. They say I owe them over $16,000. I don't have that kind of money.
Don't try to fight the IRS on your own. Use Coast One Financial Group and let them help you get a fresh start. If you owe at least $10,000 in back taxes, call now for a free and confidential tax debt analysis. Call Coast One now for a free consultation at 800-643-4661 now. 800-643-4661. That's 800-643-4661.
Unexpected reactions to smart financial decisions brought to you by feedthepig.org.
Well, I finally did it. I improved my credit score.
You're kidding, right?
No.
How are we supposed to be the bad boys of electro-synth pop if you're out there being responsible? The band is about to be discovered. This is our year.
Yeah, you've been saying that for a while now.
You think anyone in the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame was worried about their credit score?
I never really thought that.
Of course they weren't. Rock stars aren't supposed to think about that kind of stuff. We're supposed to think about how many guitars we've smashed, write aggressively sensitive power ballads, start questionable fashion trends, tragically break up and blame creative differences.
All right. I thought maybe it was time to take control of my finances, you know? Start using a budget. Get out of debt. Set some goals.
A budget? Debt? Set some goals? Listen, I knew that we'd have our creative differences, but I was hoping they'd involve a little more scandal.
When it comes to financial stability, don't get left behind. Get tools and tips for saving at feedthepig.org. This message brought to you by the American Institute of CPAs and the Ad Council.
The Costa Report is now heard in all 50 states on fine radio stations, including this one.